Ladies and gentlemen, welcome back to my channel. There's a moment silent and unscripted that often goes unnoticed. It happens when the texts stop coming, when the familiar perfume no longer lingers on your pillow, when her absence becomes louder than her presence ever was. And yet you tell yourself she's fine, she moved on, she's laughing somewhere else, maybe even in someone else's arms. And you carry on with your life pretending it didn't matter that much, pretending you weren't affected. Because you're a man, you're not supposed to unravel, but what if I told you that she feels the loss of you more than you think? Not in the ways she might admit, not in the midnight confessions or the Instagram captions, but in the quiet places, her routines, her solitude, her memories of what once was. You see, losing a man who gave her emotional safety, who saw her, truly saw her, is a different kind of heartbreak. It's the kind that doesn't fade with distraction or time. It lingers, it whispers. This isn't just about relationships. It's about how love imprints on us, how the absence of connection leaves behind echoes, and how men often underestimate the depth of their emotional impact. So today, let's explore the invisible imprint you've left on her heart, not from ego, but from truth. Because love, when it's real, never disappears quietly. Now, let's begin. Have you ever found yourself pacing alone in your apartment at night, TV playing in the background, just loud enough to drown the silence, but not loud enough to quiet your thoughts? You scroll through your phone, maybe glance at her name in your contacts, maybe not. You think you're okay. You tell yourself this is just what happens, people grow apart. Life moves forward, she'll be fine, you'll be fine. But there's a part of you, quiet and unresolved, that wonders if she thinks about you at all, and here's the twist, she does. More than you imagine, more than she'll admit, more than you might be able to believe. You see, when a woman loses a man she once felt deeply connected to, not a placeholder, not a convenience, but a man who once made her feel safe, understood, cherished, that loss doesn't evaporate. It embeds, it gets into the seams of her daily life, into the small things that no one else notices. The way she no longer laughs at the same jokes, the way her smile holds a flicker of remembering, the way her body moves differently when she realizes there's no one left who truly knows how to read her heart. And yet we live in a culture that often misinterprets female loss. We assume she'll cry, binge some show, text her friends, and bounce back in a few weeks. But real loss doesn't follow a script. Real loss lingers, because love isn't something you can just delete from your emotional hard drive. It doesn't matter how many empowerment quotes she posts, how many new dresses she buys, or how carefully curated her social life becomes. If she ever loved you deeply, she feels your absence like a ghost that won't leave the room. Why is this important for you, as a man, to understand? Because most men I work with, and I've worked with many, carry a deep sense of confusion and silence around the emotional aftermath of their relationships. They think women move on easily, that the man was disposable. They tell themselves that their presence didn't matter as much as her words once said. But often that isn't true. Often it's quite the opposite. When you were in her life, you brought with you a rhythm, a way of being. Maybe it was the way you made coffee in the morning, your quiet patience when she vented about her day, or the calm that settled into the room when you simply sat beside her. You weren't perfect, no one is, but you mattered in her nervous system. You became a kind of emotional gravity that helped her feel anchored in the world. And when that's gone, her body knows it, even if her mind is telling her to stay strong, even if she's convincing herself to move on. Her body remembers the softness of your touch, the way your voice dropped when you were vulnerable, the subtle tension in your jaw when you were holding something back. Those memories are not just emotional, they're somatic. They live in her body like music you can't turn off. What makes this more complex is that many women are taught not to speak this loss, especially not to the man they lost. Pride, fear, self-protection, it all builds a wall, but inside the ache is real. The sleepless nights, the moment she reaches for her phone to send you a message she'll never send, the way your favorite song randomly plays on the radio and she sits in her car, just breathing. Through the ache, she's not okay, not fully, and she doesn't want to admit that you still live inside her. So what makes a man unforgettable to a woman? It's not your money, it's not your car, it's not how many people liked your vacation photos. It's your emotional signature. It's the way you made her feel seen in a world that often demanded she shrink herself. It's the way you gave her space to be soft in a world where she had to be hard. It's the way you listened without fixing, held without clutching, and loved without controlling. If you gave her that, she's not just mourning the end of a relationship. She's mourning the loss of who she was when she was with you. Because you didn't just love her, you helped her love parts of herself she had forgotten. And now, without you, she's searching for that version of herself in every room she walks into, hoping maybe she'll find a trace of it again. Some men underestimate their presence because they weren't told they were emotionally significant. Maybe you didn't grow up being seen, so it's hard to imagine that someone else could be grieving your absence. But let me tell you this, when you show up with authenticity, with integrity, with genuine care, when you allow a woman to feel deeply connected to you, you leave an imprint on her, one that doesn't go away just because the relationship ended, even if she was the one who walked away, even if she said she didn't love you anymore, even if she left with someone else, the grief doesn't always follow logic. Sometimes people walk away not because they stopped loving, but because they stopped hoping things would change. They leave not because they want to forget, but because staying started to feel like betrayal of their own needs. And still she misses you. Even in the arms of someone else, she might miss the way you knew how to read the language of her silence, the way you sensed her sadness before she had the words, the way you saw through her defenses and held her anyway. And even though she may never say it aloud, there's a part of her that wonders if she made a mistake, if she gave up something too rare, too real. Sometimes the people we lose become mirrors to the parts of ourselves we can't access anymore. And you, yes you, were more than just a chapter in her story. You were a mirror, a sanctuary, a spark. And that's not easy to replace. This is not to flatter your ego. This is to call you back into the awareness of your emotional presence. As a man, your depth matters, your softness matters, your absence matters, and the sooner you recognize that, the sooner you can stop doubting your worth just because she never said the words. Her silence is not proof that she doesn't feel. Sometimes silence is the only way she knows how to protect herself from drowning in all the feelings she can't share. And here's the thing no one tells you. It often takes women longer to unravel emotionally because they were holding up the emotional scaffolding of the relationship all along. She was carrying the weight of both your emotions, both your unmet needs, and now that it's over, she's finally falling apart in ways she couldn't before. She cries in the shower where no one can hear. She scrolls through old messages wondering how you went from warm to distant. She wears your hoodie when no one's looking, and every now and then she dreams about you, not the fights. Not the ending, but the beginning, the tenderness, the way you once looked at her like she was the only thing that made sense. You're not forgotten, you're imprinted. Let's pause here, right at the edge of that realization, and let it sink in. There's something quietly tragic about the way we move through heartbreak in this modern world. So much emphasis on closure. On cutting ties, staying strong, deleting photos, blocking numbers, moving forward. But real love, soul-level connection, doesn't obey those rules. And neither does grief, especially hers. You may think she's doing better because she's posting pictures with friends, because her stories are full of smiles and sunsets. You may convince yourself that she's out there living, thriving, forgetting, but what you don't see are the moments she doesn't post. The late nights when she lies on her side of the bed, still yours in her mind, and wonders how someone can be everywhere in her thoughts but nowhere in her life. It's not that she misses having someone, it's that she misses you, and she might not even know how to say that. Because admitting that she still feels the pull of your presence means exposing a wound she's spent weeks, maybe months, trying to close. And because she fears that maybe, just maybe, you don't miss her the same way. But here's something most men don't understand. Women often experience loss later, deeper and more internally than men do. Not because they're more emotional, but because they were more emotionally involved throughout. While you were compartmentalizing, she was absorbing. While you were trying to stay cool and calm, she was picking up the silences between your words. She was feeling your distance before you even noticed it yourself. She was grieving the relationship before it even ended, so when you walked away, or when she finally had to, what you saw as a clean break was anything but. She didn't just lose a boyfriend, a lover, a partner. She lost her emotional home, the one she built around you. The way your voice calmed her chaos, the way your arms made her feel small in the best possible way. The way she could exhale into you, that's what she lost, and you cannot replace that kind of safety with casual flings or distractions. It lingers, it haunts. Sometimes she wonders if you even remember what she looked like when she cried in your arms. If you still recall the sound of her laughter when she felt fully loved. If you notice her absence when you pass by that place you both used to visit. She wonders not because she's stuck, but because that love left an echo inside her that still asks questions. And I'll tell you something else, something most men never realize. She feels the loss in her body. Yes, her body, not in a purely sexual way, but in a deeply somatic one. Because when a woman loves, she does so with her full being. Her nervous system begins to regulate around the presence of the man she trusts. Her heart rate softens when she hears your voice. Her breathing slows when she leans into your chest. Her muscles relax when you touch her shoulder just right. You became more than a lover, you became part of her internal calm, so when you're gone, her body reacts. Sleeplessness, anxiety, that feeling of emptiness in her gut when she walks into a room and you're not in it. It's not weakness, it's biology. Her entire being had adjusted to your presence, and now it has to relearn how to feel safe alone again. But the tragedy here is that she rarely talks about this, because there's shame in wanting someone who didn't stay. There's shame in missing a man who didn't fight harder, so she silences herself. She becomes stoic. She tells her friends she's fine, and in some ways she is. Women are resilient like that, but resilience doesn't mean absence of pain. It just means she's carrying it well, and beneath that strength there's often a quiet, unanswered question echoing in her. Did he ever truly see me? Not the version of her you tried to mold. Not the fantasy, but her, fully, with her flaws, her fire, her fears, because if you saw her and still let her go, the grief cuts deeper. Then the loss becomes layered, not just the absence of you, but the betrayal of her own hope. You see, the loss of a man is not always about the man himself. It's about what she thought she found in him, and when that illusion breaks, it's not just heartbreak, it's disorientation. Like waking up from a beautiful dream into a gray, unfamiliar world. She has to find her footing again, learn how to trust herself again, build new rituals from the ashes of the old ones. And if you think she's looking for someone new to replace you, think again. For many women, the aftermath of deep love isn't about substitution. It's about introspection. She starts to wonder where she lost herself in loving you. She retraces the moments she dimmed her light to keep the peace. She remembers how many times she bit her tongue so you wouldn't feel attacked. And in that remembering, she mourns not just you, but the parts of herself that vanished in your presence. So while you may feel a strange lightness after the break, a sense of freedom, she may feel a hollow. And that's not to say you don't hurt, but your grief likely comes in waves usually triggered by something external, a smell, a song, a sudden flash of memory. Hers, it lives just beneath the skin, humming like a dull ache, ever present. She feels the loss because you were real to her. Not just a chapter, but a world she stepped into with both feet, both eyes open, heart exposed. And when that world collapsed, she was left holding the ruins with no blueprint for what comes next. Here's what I want you to understand genuinely, without blame or defensiveness. It's not your fault that she feels this deeply, but it is your responsibility to recognize that your presence mattered, that how you showed up in her life left an impact. That emotional intimacy isn't erased by time. It leaves fingerprints. Some of you might be thinking, if she felt all this, why didn't she fight harder? But here's the truth. Some women don't leave when they stop loving. They leave when they stop hoping. And sometimes the deepest heartbreak is walking away from someone you still love because staying began to hurt more than leaving. And now maybe you wonder what to do with all this knowing. Maybe it stirs something in you. Maybe you realize she wasn't just another relationship. That she was a mirror reflecting back the man you were, the man you could be, the man you sometimes forgot to show her. And now she's gone, but her imprint remains, and yours remains in her, not because she's weak, but because she allowed herself to love with an open heart. Because she let you in, because you mattered, and even now, as she's rebuilding, there are pieces of you scattered in her story. So what do you do with that? You honor it, not by chasing closure or reopening old wounds, but by acknowledging truly that you mattered to someone, that you were loved, that your absence is not invisible, that your presence was powerful, and maybe, just maybe, this awareness changes the way you love the next time. With more presence, more clarity, more gratitude, less fear, there's a certain quiet wisdom that comes with loss, especially when we allow ourselves to sit in it rather than run from it. And I want to invite you to consider something that might feel both confronting and comforting. What if her grief is not a wound, but a tribute? What if the ache she carries isn't a sign of weakness or emotional dependency, but a sign that what you shared was real? We live in a time where detachment is mistaken for power, where ghosting is called self-care, where vulnerability is often traded for strategy. And in that climate, it's easy to believe that love should be clean, tidy, and disposable, but real love, deep, consuming, imperfect love, always leaves a trace. She doesn't mourn you because she's stuck in the past. She mourns you because, for a moment in time, her world made sense with you in it. And now it doesn't, even if she's moved on in some ways, even if she's dating again or rediscovering herself or flourishing in her own right. That doesn't mean the memory of you has vanished. Women often move forward with grace and dignity, but that doesn't mean they're not carrying the echoes. The memory of the way you once made her laugh so hard she couldn't breathe, the late night conversations that stretched until sunrise. The way she used to melt into your arms as if she had finally found the place where she could rest. She carries all of that, not because she can't let go, but because she knows that some experiences mark us for life. And you were one of them, and now you're left with your own silence. Maybe you're starting to feel the ache too. Not the kind that comes from missing just anyone, but the kind that comes from missing her, from realizing that what you had was rare. That you were seen in a way you hadn't been before, that someone held your emotional contradictions without turning away. And you're beginning to understand now it wasn't just that she loved you, it's that she understood you. She read the parts of you were never brave enough to say out loud. She sensed when you were emotionally withdrawing, even before you recognized it yourself. She held space for the little boy in you, the one who needed reassurance, who feared abandonment, who sometimes didn't know how to show love, only how to guard it. And maybe you never thanked her for that. Maybe you didn't even see it until now. And I say this not to blame you, but to awaken you. Because this very realization is where emotional growth begins, not in reading books or listening to podcasts or saying the right words, but in recognizing the impact of your presence. In understanding that being in someone's life is never neutral, you are either contributing to their safety or their confusion, their healing or their unraveling. And if she feels the loss of you more than you ever expected, it means that you touched something sacred in her. It means you mattered in a world that's constantly telling men that they don't, that they're disposable, that they should be tough, detached, emotionally indifferent. But I'm here to tell you that the opposite is true. Your presence has gravity. When you are emotionally available, when you show up consistently, when you love with vulnerability, you become unforgettable. Not because you're perfect, but because you're real, and for her you were real, even if the relationship had cracks, even if you both made mistakes, even if you outgrew each other. None of that changes the emotional truth of what once existed between you. And the greatest irony, she probably never got to say goodbye to that version of you, not the surface level goodbye that comes with breakups, but the kind that says, I'll always carry you with me. The kind that acknowledges that even if paths diverge, hearts don't always follow. The kind that's quiet, sacred, and deeply human. You may never get that goodbye, and she may never hear the words you now carry in your heart. But that doesn't make them less true. That doesn't make them disappear. So here's where you get to choose who you become next. You can close off, harden, tell yourself that vulnerability only leads to pain, or you can take this grief, this clarity, and let it soften you. Let it remind you of your capacity to feel, to connect, to matter. Because you did matter, you still do. And the next woman who comes into your life, she'll feel that. She'll feel the man who has been loved deeply enough to grow, who no longer runs from his emotional weight, who understands that love isn't about performance but presence. And maybe, just maybe, the next time you fall in love, you'll stay more present through the discomfort. You'll speak before withdrawing. You'll hold her longer on the nights she needs to fall apart. You'll tell her you're scared instead of pretending to be strong. You'll love her not from a place of needing to be needed, but from a place of already knowing your worth. Because if you can make a woman feel your absence this deeply, imagine the power of your presence when you show up fully. And what about her? She'll keep healing. She'll keep growing. She'll build a new life. Maybe she already has. But you'll always be a part of the version of her that learned how to love boldly. You'll be the reason she no longer settles for half-present love. You taught her that her capacity to feel was not a weakness, but a gift. And when she thinks of you, years from now, she may smile. Not because she doesn't miss you, but because for a moment you were home. So honor that, honor her. Honor the love that shaped you both even if it didn't last, because some connections don't end, they evolve. They stretch across time, woven into the people we become. And even if she never speaks your name again, even if her world never crosses paths with yours again, you were part of her becoming. And she was part of yours. There's something heartbreakingly tender about realizing the role you played in someone else's inner world. That long after your last message, long after the door quietly closed behind you, parts of you still echo in her breath, her choices, her silences. She may no longer whisper your name. She may have deleted your number, cleared your photos, even moved cities. But your fingerprint, emotional, invisible, is still there, on her taste in music, on how long she takes to reply to new messages. On the way, she now questions what love should feel like, because once she's felt something true, she can never again be content with something that only looks like love. You see, when you showed up in her life, you weren't just another person in her calendar. You were an experience. You were comfort and challenge, sweetness and spark, laughter and lessons, and what she mourns now isn't just the memories but the feeling of being known by you, of being unraveled in a way that made her feel both vulnerable and safe at the same time. You taught her how love could feel. And when you left, or when she had to let you go, what was lost wasn't only a partner, it was a mirror that reflected her softness, her radiance, her capacity to hold space for two. And without that mirror, there are days she forgets how bright she really is. But what no one tells you is how much strength it takes for a woman to feel this loss and still keep going. To wake up and not reach out, to see your name and resist the urge to check if you've moved on, to smile in public when inside her heart feels like it's limping. She doesn't show it, she's not performing sadness, she's surviving it quietly, beautifully, painfully. And here's where the misunderstanding often begins. You may think that because she ended it, or because she walked away, that she no longer loved you, that her absence meant she stopped caring, but sometimes the deepest act of love is letting go. Sometimes she leaves not because the love died, but because she was dying in its shadow. Because holding on to you meant losing herself a little more each day. Because staying required her to silence her own needs, and one day her silence became too loud to bear. That's the moment men often miss, the quiet build-up, the invisible goodbye that happens weeks, sometimes months before the final one. She tried to talk to you, she tried to reach you, maybe with her words, maybe with her body, maybe with her tears. But when she felt unheard, unseen, unfelt, a decision slowly formed, not out of spite, but out of survival. And now she's gone, but not without scars. You might imagine her curled up crying, or you might imagine her dancing with someone new. The truth is probably somewhere in between. She's healing in waves. She's learning to rewire her nervous system without the rhythm of your affection. She's rediscovering her own touch, her own voice, her own solitude, not because she wants to forget you, but because she's trying to remember herself. And yet, even in that healing, even in her growth, there are flashes of you. A shirt she hasn't worn since you left. A dish she no longer cooks because it reminds her of your jokes. A song that turns up on the radio when she least expects it. She closes her eyes, she breathes through it, and in that moment she lets herself feel, just for a second. And then she keeps going because that's what women do. They carry the memories like hidden photographs inside their chest. They visit them in quiet moments, not to get stuck in the past, but to honor the truth that what you had mattered. And here's something most men never consider, the strength it takes for her not to come back, to not send that message, to not say, "I miss you," even when every cell in her body wants to. Because she knows that what you had was beautiful, but it wasn't safe anymore. And she's learning to choose herself even when her heart still leans toward you. So if you ever wonder why she feels the loss more than you expected, it's because she loved from a place you didn't fully understand at the time. She didn't love you for your accomplishments or your status. She loved the boy inside the man, the soft place. The flawed, fragile, beautiful parts you kept hidden from the world. She made a home in those shadows, and when you left, or when she had to, she lost her own sense of shelter too. But you must also know this: she's rebuilding. Every tear watered the soil beneath her feet. Every night she couldn't sleep was one step closer to awakening. Every unanswered question taught her to listen inward. She's not the same woman anymore, and that, perhaps, is the saddest and most sacred part of all. Because if you met her today, you'd see her strength first. You'd see the way she protects her energy, guards her peace, honors her own time. But you'd also notice something else, a softness that's slower to emerge, a vulnerability that waits a little longer. A love that still aches, but now speaks her name first. She feels your loss not because she's lost without you, but because she remembers who she was with you. And that version of her, the one who trusted love more easily, who gave without fear, who believed she could build a future with you. That version is still healing. But hear me clearly, this is not a tragedy, it's a transformation, because loss, when felt fully, doesn't just break us, it reshapes us. And in that reshaping, we become wiser, we become more aware of what love really requires, of how presence, patience, and emotional fluency are not optional, they are everything. She's learning this, and so are you. And if you let this understanding settle into your chest, if you allow it to stretch your heart wider than before, then the next time you love, it will be different. Not perfect, but rooted, conscious, reverent, because now you know what it means to be missed in silence. Now you know the impact of your absence. Now you know the truth. She feels the loss of you more than you think, not because she's weak, but because what you had was real. There is a quiet you feel in your chest when something meaningful ends, not the kind of noise absence makes when it's still trying to be noticed, but the kind that settles. That becomes a part of you, like the fading scent of someone's shampoo on your pillow weeks after they've gone. Like a song you used to play together that now hits different because there's no hand to hold when the chorus drops. And maybe you've come to realize now, in the stillness of hindsight, that what you had wasn't just a chapter, it was a whole language, a way of being that redefined the rhythm of your days. And now that she's no longer part of your story, you hear silence differently. You feel the empty space where once there was laughter, friction, warmth, maybe even fire. She feels it too. But here's the thing, the way she carries that loss is often invisible to the outside world because she's learned how to survive. She's learned how to smile through the ache, how to grow around the wound. That's how women heal gracefully and slowly, like ivy climbing around the edge of what broke her. But even as she heals, your name still lives in her bones, not always painfully, sometimes gently, like a tender bruise she's no longer afraid to touch. Because she knows now, love doesn't have to be forever to be true, and just because something didn't last, doesn't mean it didn't change her. You did, and what's most profound is that she may never say these things out loud. She may never send the message, never knock on your door, not because she doesn't feel them, but because healing for her meant learning how to feel everything without needing anything in return. That's why her grief is quiet, sacred, private, and maybe that's what hurts you now, the realization that she carried all this and you didn't know, that while you were busy numbing, distracting, defending your detachment, she was tending to an inner garden full of wilted petals and unspoken memories. And now she's blooming again, not in spite of losing you, but because of it. Because the version of her that once waited for your message, that once walked on eggshells to keep you comfortable, that once sacrificed her voice to hold on to connection, that version no longer exists. She's no longer the woman who would trade her boundaries for belonging. She's no longer the girl who'd rather be chosen than cherished. She grew, and in that growth, she outgrew the parts of herself that once accepted less. But don't confuse that growth for indifference. Don't assume that because she moved forward, she doesn't look back. There are moments, quiet ones, when she still reaches for the ghost of what you shared. When she wonders if you've changed, if you now understand what she tried so hard to show you then, if you see now what she meant when she said, "I just need you to be here with me," because it wasn't about fixing everything. It was about presence, emotional presence, the kind that says, "I'm not running when this gets hard." The kind that says, "I may not always have the answers, but I won't leave you to carry this alone." That's what she needed. Not perfection, not constant romance, just the kind of steadiness that allowed her nervous system to soften. Just the kind of honesty that made her feel chosen, not for what she gave, but for who she was when she gave it. And that, my dear man, is what you now understand, perhaps too late, but even in that lateness there is grace. Because understanding this now doesn't mean you have to rush back and reopen wounds. It means you get to move forward differently, with more awareness, with more reverence, with more softness for the hearts you touch. It means you don't brush off someone's quiet withdrawal as moodiness. You listen, you lean in, you learn the language of someone's emotional safety, and for her, the woman who still carries your name somewhere between her laughter and her longing, she'll continue walking her path. With dignity, with wisdom, with a softness that's now fiercely protected, she'll love again, not in the same way, but deeper. Wiser, because of you, because of everything you were and everything you weren't, because in your absence she finally became the woman who no longer abandons herself to be loved. And that's the legacy you've left behind, a woman reborn, not because you broke her, but because she rebuilt from the ache of your absence. So, what now? Now you honor it, not with regret, not with shame, but with respect. You honor the relationship that taught you about your own emotional capacity. You honor the woman who believed in you, even when you didn't believe in yourself. You honor the truth that your absence shaped her strength, but so did your love. And if you ever find yourself missing her, missing the sound of her voice, the way she looked at you like she saw the boy and the man inside you, don't silence it. Let yourself feel it. Let the missing become a moment of gratitude, because love, even when it ends, is still sacred. And she feels the loss of you, not because she's broken or weak or unable to let go, but because loving you meant something. And that something, that sacred, imperfect, unforgettable something will always matter, so hold it, carry it with reverence. Let it soften the edges of who you are, because love, when felt fully, never really leaves, it just lives differently. If this message moved something in you, if it stirred your heart, your memory, your truth, then I invite you to share your reflections in the comments. Not because you owe anyone a confession, but because healing happens when we speak what once stayed silent. And if this helped you feel seen, please like this video, subscribe. Be part of this space where we speak honestly, where we name what hurts, where we hold love with both hands even when it slips through our fingers. Because here's the truth, you are not forgotten, you are not invisible, you were loved, and she feels the loss of you more than you think.